know that Dr. Leon Lederman was the founder of IMSA? Similar to how our parents feel about us, Dr. Lederman always had much love, affection, and praise for IMSA faculty, staff, students, and alumni. Because of Dr. Lederman's tireless efforts, IMSA alumni have gone on to become scientists, engineers, doctors, entrepreneurs, and educators, fulfilling the dream that Dr. Lederman had. You'll learn more about this incredible man in just a moment.
And speaking of IMSA alumni, we're excited to honor 4 accomplished alumni. I can't wait to meet them. But first, let's hear a few words from IMSA's principal, Dr. Akwaji Anderson.
All right. Thank you, Bhavya. I just want to welcome everyone again to the Leon Lederman Tribute and the 2022 Alumni Awards. We want every student who attends IMSA to know our founder, Dr. Lederman, and help celebrate the accomplishments, of course, of our alumni. Thanks, Val, again, and Bhavya, for hosting today's assembly celebration. Enjoy the program.
Thank you, Dr. Akwaji Anderson. I'm excited to help honor the founder of IMSA, Dr. Leon Lederman. In establishing IMSA, Dr. Lederman created a new kind of educational institution, a school publicly funded by the state of Illinois that caters to talented students like us who love math and science. One of his goals was to increase the number of extraordinarily talented people into the world for the benefit of society. His other objectives were for IMSA to serve as a learning laboratory for innovative techniques in math and science education and as a resource for other teachers in Illinois. At this time, I'd like to introduce the chair of IMSA's Board of Trustees and a 1989 IMSA alumni, Dr. Aaron Roche, who will share more about Dr. Lederman's legacy and accomplishments by this video.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this celebration. It is my pleasure to help honor IMSA's founder, Dr. Leon Lederman, a man who I knew and admired for over 30 years. Born and raised in New York, Dr. Lederman became the second director of Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory in Batavia, Illinois in 1979. His administration brought Fermilab into its position of scientific prominence by 1983 with the achievement of the world's most powerful superconducting accelerator, the Tevatron. Dr. Lederman also became a leader in launching programs to encourage young people to pursue their scientific interests. His deep concern for the quality of science and mathematics education in Illinois and his intense commitment to motivate students to pursue careers in science led him to propose the concept of the Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy, a place that would inspire and challenge students of exceptional talent. Leon was known for his humor. He says it put him into a comfortable relationship with other people. He believed it was part of teaching. Once he gave a talk before the New York Science Teachers Association at the Stardust Room, a place where great comedians performed. He took the microphone and said, "The teacher says to the student, 'Hey, wake up that kid who's sleeping next to you.' And the student says, 'Why should I? You put him to sleep.'" As a physicist, researcher, university professor, national laboratory director, and Nobel laureate, Dr. Leon Lederman influenced the role of science and science education, but will be remembered most by the IMSA community for his love of science and of students. I love the way he worked with students. He introduced us to the academic community by bringing in his fellow Nobel laureates so we could learn from, interact with, and be inspired by the greatest minds of our time. Dr. Lederman was a shining light that changed the world and the way we learned about science. He had such a passion for science and for students. I remember when Dr. Lederman was at IMSA several times in the late 1980s. I was struck then and still today by his vision of IMSA as a place to foster innovative scientific and educational practices. Before his first visit, he hadn't yet won the Nobel Prize. He won it in my senior year, I believe. Then he came back to visit students and faculty as this world-renowned celebrity, and he had the same passion to champion IMSA students changing the world. He was so personable, and he was a visionary. Throughout his lifetime, Dr. Lederman has been honored by presidents and kings worldwide for his contributions to science, including President Lyndon B. Johnson for the National Medal of Science, President of Israel, Chaim Herzog, for the Wolf Prize in Physics, President Bill Clinton for the Enrico Fermi Award, and King Carl Gustaf XVI of Sweden, who presented Leon with the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1988. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, IMSA staff, including faculty and all IMSA alumni, I encourage each and every one of you, our current students, to carry on his legacy. Your passion, dedication, and contributions to society will make his life's work and his vision for IMSA shine bright always.
If we do what we know is right, we know what we feel is right, it's bound to happen that among our graduates there'll be numbered scientists, engineers, and those who go on to earn degrees in law and the humanities. There are likely to be those few who create new intellectual worlds, cure a human ailment, or in some other way significantly influence life on our planet. Philosophy, because we don't know which of our students will do these things, our philosophy will be to treat our charges as if each one is capable of this extraordinary achievement. Only one such product will make the effort and expense of this school for its entire duration worthwhile.
Wow, what an amazing man to have created IMSA for all of us. I think that if Dr. Lederman was here, he would be very proud of our next guests. That's right. It's time to meet the 2022 Alumni Award winners. But before we do, I'd like to invite Dr. Glazer, IMSA's president, to say hello and tell us a little bit more about the Alumni Award Recognition Program.
Thank you, Val. Hello, IMSA. Before I talk about the Alumni Awards Program, I'd like to recognize some special guests in the audience. And I'm going to recognize a bunch of them, so I ask that let's hold our applause, and then at the end I'll say, like, let's thank them together, okay? First, I'd certainly like to provide a special welcome to all the families of the alumni that we're honoring here today. I know that some of you have made big journeys actually to be here to recognize someone that you deeply care about and love. I'd like to also acknowledge IMSA's founding president, Dr. Stephanie Pace Marshall, who is here. Stephanie, I hope that one day I could be in your seats and having a student in the students in this audience right here and have the joy of following their whole career, right? Following the successes of their career, and then to be there and to honor them must be such an amazing feeling for you, right? And I really hope to have that opportunity in my future as well. I wanted to also recognize a variety of leaders. We have the IMSA Alumni Association, IMSA Black Alumni Association, representatives Lacey Thomas and Brian Kudiamat. We also have representatives of the IMSA Fund Board, Matt Maddox and Richard Tung. And we also have a variety of mentors to the people that we're honoring today as former faculty and staff who are with us right here in the front row. So let's give all of these guests a big round of applause. And really, I use the term guest, but I really should be saying family, because you have, so many of you have committed so much to IMSA in so many different ways, not just being a student or being a family member, but have been giving back for so many years beyond graduation. And I deeply, deeply appreciate that. The IMSA Board of Trustees established the Alumni Awards Program in 2006 to recognize IMSA alumni who have delivered outstanding contributions to their fields of endeavor to IMSA and to citizens of Illinois, our nation, and to the world. An Alumni Awards Review Committee reviews nominations from IMSA community members for 3 award categories and recommends candidates to the Board of Trustees for approval. Through the generosity of the Kathy Veal Endowment for Board of Trustees Alumni Award established with the IMSA Fund, we are able to host this program and bring our recipients to IMSA from around the world. Kathy Veal served at IMSA for 29 years. In fact, some of you met Kathy remotely yesterday as she was part of a entrepreneurship panel, Women in Entrepreneurship, last night. So Kathy continues to give in so many different ways. While she was here, you should know, she served in like almost every role. She was the Dean of Student Services, Director of Communications, Vice President, and even served as the President for a year. Mrs. Veal chose to establish the endowment to honor alumni, and with whom she maintains many meaningful relationships with and whose lives and work inspire her. There will be no doubt in my mind that after you graduate from IMSA, you will find ways to connect to Mrs. Kathy Veal. There's no question about that. That's the profound impact people have who come to IMSA and continue to give because they care so much about our academy. Mrs. Veal currently lives in North Carolina and couldn't be with us today. However, we extend our deepest appreciation to her. At this time, we will begin the 2022 Alumni Awards celebration.
Thank you to Mrs. Veal for her generous Alumni Endowment Fund and to Dr. Glazer for kicking off the 2022 Alumni Awards. I'm pleased to announce our first award, which is the Titan Award. The Alumni Titan Award honors alumni who have provided outstanding service to IMSA, helping to advance the institution's mission and work. The honorees are enthusiastic and energetic IMSA champions who dedicate significant time, talent, and are treasured to endeavors that help the Academy fulfill its role in developing talent and leadership in mathematics, science, and technology for our state, nation, and world. We are excited for you to meet not just one, but two Titan Award winners. Our first amazing winner is Robert Chang.
Mr. Chang is a 1989 IMSA Charter class member. He's the founder and CEO of SideTime, a platform that offers mentoring, experience, and expertise to underrepresented groups. He has served in leadership roles at venture-backed startups, Fortune 50 companies, and nonprofit institutions, including the Home Depot and the Harvard School of Public Health. Mr. Chang currently co-leads Blue Titan Ventures, an early-stage venture capital syndicate investing in and supporting growth startups founded by IMSA alumni. He is board secretary and chair of the Marketing Communications Committee for Vibrant Emotional Health, which runs state-of-the-art crisis lines, including the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, NYC Well, and the Disaster Distress Helpline, and the NFL Lifeline. Robert is an award-winning independent film producer focused on supporting first and second feature films by Asian American directors, with 5 films premiering and receiving awards at Sundance and XXSW, a nomination for an Independent Spirit Award. He's currently supporting several innovative film and media projects as an executive and producer, including 10 Sky Entertainment. He received a Bachelor in Arts in Sociology from the University of Chicago and an MBA in Finance and Nonprofit Management from the Yale School of Management. Please welcome Mr. Robert Chang.
Good morning, distinguished students, faculty, leaders, and the IMSA Board of Trustees. I am both honored and humbled today to receive this year's IMSA Alumni Titan Award. I am grateful to my parents, my wife Ginger, my children Julianne and Evan, and to the IMSA community at large. I would start by observing that this award, named the IMSA Alumni Titan Award, truly belongs to all alumni. We are all Titans with the potential and possibility to make a difference every day as individuals, within our families, communities, across Illinois, the United States, and the world, and many of you do. I would also observe that I'm the opening act for today's ceremony, which also resonates with me because I am humbled by my fellow alumni and their impact in the world. And for me, they are the main event. As a charter class member, my life was transformed by IMSA's inquiry-based approach and mission. When you look at my experience and approach to life, it has been fundamentally influenced by the importance of making real-world connections through exploration and high-level questioning across a range of disciplines and industries. I engage in systems thinking and an ecosystem approach to solving challenges. I am also continuously focused on advancing the human condition and have dedicated a substantial portion of my focus on work that impacts underserved communities and individuals as a volunteer, executive, and board director. As many of you may know, I co-lead Blue Titan Ventures alongside founding and longtime former leaders at IMSA and fellow alumni as we seek to strengthen the overall IMSA ecosystem and complement the exceptional work by IMSA's administration, faculty, and leadership for current students. How can we nurture and continue to support IMSA students as they embark on new adventures and seek to have impact after they graduate from IMSA? How can we engage alumni and seek to have impact, how can we engage alumni from across a range of disciplines and foster diversity, inclusion, and belonging in the entrepreneurial sector? Blue Titan Ventures is perhaps the first and only venture capital entity supporting alumni of a specific high school, and I hope an exemplar of the innovation we continue to advance. I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute to these efforts and enjoy collaborating with, among others, Kathy Veal and Stephanie Pace-Marshall in a different role in my life. I am also grateful for both friendship and collaboration with IMSA alum that span both decades and depth. As my classmate Rebecca shared with me a few weeks ago, we are brothers and sisters indeed in the IMSA family, as time has only drawn many of us closer. What other family could I collaborate simultaneously with a recognized cardiologist at the Mayo Clinic, one of the world's leading machine learning scientists, and an Emmy Award-winning editor? But as I look back over the 30-plus years since I graduated, I sometimes both think of and refer to Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken, but neither for the often cited reasons nor my own journey. I mash it up with science fiction visionary William Gibson's often cited quote, "The future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed." Because for many people, including some of you, there may just be one road. For many, and increasingly so, there's not a second road accessible at all. How can we individually and as a society encourage, support, and enable those who need to forge on their own that second road, cut through the tall grass and through the forest to make another path in this world? Not everyone has been afforded an IMSA experience or a family that they can turn to, and none of us should take that for granted. I've had my own experiences as a son of first-generation immigrants. I also had to learn to be comfortable as an introvert in multiple worlds and disciplines where I was a minority, and to forge new paths with new companions on these journeys. I'm grateful because it made me a better person, as I had to find different angles and bring interdisciplinary approaches and systems thinkings to these collaborations. I couldn't just accept what was there, but trying to make a difference involves both failure and success. I would encourage you all to be brave in finding a path where you can have an impact in one life or many. I would also ask you to also think about how you can make options more accessible to all. In closing, I would quote the opening page of the first IMSA yearbook. In the beginning, there was an idea. What we grow towards is something even beyond what the founders envisioned. I continue to be inspired and engaged with IMSA because the impact that you, current and past students, faculty, and leaders have had and will continue to have on the future of the state of Illinois, our communities, and our society. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Chang, and thank you for all that you do for IMSA. We're not done just yet. We have another Titan Award to honor today, and the winner is Dr. Jasmine Quazza. Dr. Quazza is a 2009 IMSA graduate and participated in the Excel program. She is a postdoctoral fellow and lead engineer at Precision Neuroscopics, Inc., where she researches and develops emerging neurotechnologies optimized for coarse, curly hair, and dark skin. Her work in the ethics space has been featured in Nature Neuroscience, the International Neuroethics Society, the Emory Neuroethics blog, and the international hashtag Black in Neuro initiative. Dr. Quazza has also been honored as a National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellow and Ford Foundation Fellow in 2015, Society for Neuroscience Fellow in 2017, National Institutes of Health Brain Initiative Fellow, Burroughs Wellcome Fund Fellow 2022, and a Rising Star in Biomedical Engineering by MIT. She studied biomedical and electrical engineering at Washington University in St. Louis and went on to earn her MS and PhD from Boston University and CMU. In her free time, Dr. Kwaza is a dance fitness instructor and enjoys staying involved with IMSA through the Black Alumni Association, which she co-founded. She also enjoys travel and relishes time with her enormous half Chicagoan, half Kenyan family. Please welcome Dr. Jasmine Kwaza.
Thanks so much, Val. I have my laptop here. The charter class members were joking that I brought the technology, they brought paper. Okay, so first of all, thank you to everyone here. Thank you to the Board of Trustees and the Alumni Associations for selecting me for this award. It's a true honor, and it's also a relief to know that I'm not just one of those 30-year-olds who just talks about their high school all the time for no reason. It's a great place. So I'm going to talk to you today about my path to and through IMSA and the founding of the Black Alumni Association. So as my bio said, I graduated in 2009. The world was a different place. Kanye West was still on everyone's good side. And while smartphones were coming into existence, maybe 70% of the student population had phones at all. All of us were using the phones in our rooms. We relied on the internet, which shut off at 1 a.m. There was no 3G, 4G, LTE. We would have our MySpaces, and we all got on this very new fun thing called Facebook. I was one of the first beta users of this really cool platform called Gmail, and yeah, it was just a different time. So IMSA was wonderful for me. I came from the south side of Chicago. I was a shmen, I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I still pretty much am. I loved math. I was pretty indifferent about science, but I was really drawn to the IMSA experience. I loved tinkering and figuring out things, and I wanted to be an electrical engineer. It was something that I didn't know much about. It just sounded good, and I thought, let's go to IMSA and try to do that. But while I was here, I found a lot of other great passions. I loved my language classes. I was in French. I took a history of astronomy class. I had a ball with Miss Townsend in her English class. It was really incredible to meet all these amazing and kind of inspirational people the whole time. And I actually spent a lot of time, in fact, not studying, and instead hanging out with friends and showing up late to check, or you know, staying past in room and all sorts of rule breaking. And funny enough, my RC was Julie Dowling, who's here somewhere. So yeah, there she is. So funny enough, I'm trying to be a good student and get all my work done, but the truth is the slabs were calling my name. I had to be at the 05 slabs at 9 p.m. It was like a date. I needed to be there. So yes, I did serve my time for my infarctions, but I think actually building those communities and talking and being with friendships was one of the defining moments of my IMSA experience. You see, I was actually really struggling in my classes, and I found fulfillment in leadership roles, and I have the gift of gab. I love to talk. So I was co-chair of PME. I was in the African American Students Association. I danced in Diwali and Harambe and all these places. My Up Quad was one of the first groups to introduce K-pop to the IMSA community, and Shiny had just debuted, so it was really exciting. My philosophy about this was I may not be the best mathematician or the most brilliant programmer, but I'm going to take advantage of every opportunity here and lean into my talents, right? So I got to connect with people. I found people with common ground who maybe didn't even look like me, and I found mentorship and community among people, including people like Lacey Thomas, who's here, class of '08, with Dr. Adrian Coleman, who was a great confidant, Miss Minerva, who worked in the front, and a bunch of other people. So did I get an A in molecular and cellular biology? No, but I did find my fulfillment. So as mentioned, after IMSA, I went off to WashU. I got involved in research. I got a PhD. By the way, I got a PhD because they told me with medical school you have to pay, but with a PhD they pay you, so you can suffer while making money. So I went and got my PhD. I ended up at Carnegie Mellon, and this sounds like a pretty straightforward overachiever's a path, right? You go to a boarding school, you stumble into an elite college, an elite institution, and then you profit, right? But the truth is, a lot of my accomplishments, my motivation for staying in STEM, rather than going into more chatty profession like law or business or something, is a little bit out of spite. I felt like it's not something I'm proud of, but I felt like I always had to prove myself to my peers, to my teachers, and especially to myself. I'm sure a lot of you all can relate. Excuse me, I lost my place. Yes, I'm sure you can relate. While all IMSA students go through their own hero's journey to find themselves and what makes them unique, I actually felt extra pressure because of who I perceived myself to be. I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm from Chicago, and I went to excel. It didn't matter to me that everyone at IMSA experiences struggles, which is absolutely true. Everyone struggles. I was just preoccupied with my identities and the imposter syndrome. So fast forward to summer 2020, where I was finishing up my dissertation, and I fell into a kind of dark place. And it felt familiar. It felt like something I had experienced at IMSA, actually. And I had anxieties about my colleagues. Are they judging me? Will someone unfairly challenge me? I had a master's at that time, but I was still afraid that someone was going to challenge me. And I didn't have other Black women around me who looked like me, who I could lean on for support. So I got curious. I asked myself, what's holding me back? And I thought about the imposter syndrome. People say it's all in your head, but when there are actual systems in place that emphasize inequity, imposter syndrome is actually a misnomer. Self-doubt is a normal response when there's actual bias against you. Any other explanation would kind of be gaslighting your experience. So throughout my time at IMSA and beyond, the proof of inequity was actually there. And it's not to harp on IMSA, all places with STEM have some inequities, so I'll just highlight a few. Half of the Black men in my class had dropped out by graduation. Several of my Black girlfriends did too. Excel students were treated like second-class citizens. We were demonized for hanging out together in a place that we called the Black Hole. And I personally experienced a lot of implicit and explicit biases perpetuated by both students and faculty alike. And I don't bring this up to demonize IMSA, but I bring it up because IMSA has proudly and importantly prioritized equity. And I think that's the right way to go. Instead of giving everyone equal and same supports, each student instead needs to get what they need and what is fair and what is just for their development. So I'm so proud of IMSA for emphasizing equity and excellence and for recognizing that they are one and the same. They are not a balancing act. Okay, so let's get to the part about the, oh, thanks. Let's get to the part about the Black Alumni Association. So I was going through this struggle trying to graduate from my PhD, and I asked myself, well, how did I get through IMSA? Like, how did I finish there? How did I finish strong? And I realized that there are two main things that really got me through. First was the socio-emotional support. So I think of it as a call for expansion and for care, an expansion of care and attention. There were a few people on campus who I thought really saw me as more than just my identities and my grades. So I was actually quite close to the president of IMSA at the time, Max McGee, and although I was known as a leader on campus, it was, again, Dr. Adrian Coleman, and especially Dr. Aracelis Rios, who was like the chemistry orgo teacher, who repeatedly acknowledged to me that I was exceptional. All of you coming into IMSA are exceptional, but how many of us still feel that way when we're here? How many of us still feel that way when you're beyond? You have to surround yourself with people who remind you that you're excellent all the time, daily. That's how you get through. So just remember to try to find your community, find your people who will provide that. And secondly, there's the academic and professional supports. This is the more obvious one. I found that among my Black and brown peers, one thing that was exceptional for me was my family support. My grandmother, who's in the first row here, was the first Black woman to get an MBA from Loyola University. My aunt, who's also here, trained at University of Chicago and is a biologist. My mom, who's also here, let me not get emotional, was the back end of my life. She was my support. So she was editing my college essays. She was helping me with interviews. She was telling me that my resume wasn't good enough and you have to fix it and make it good. And a lot of people don't have that at home. A lot of you all don't have that at home, right? So it's the job of IMSA, and I think of the alumni community, to augment your experience in an equitable way so that all of you have those types of supports. So my mom, once again, was the person who was calling up Julie and saying, I know for a fact that my daughter is at the slabs, go get her. and bring her back to study hours, things like that. So everyone needs that type of thing. There was the great emotional breakdown of Thanksgiving 2006. I had the support of my family there, and that's super important. Okay, so let's cut to the chase here. So not all of us are born with the same privileges and the same backbone and support. So I think that the Black Alumni Association and the IMSA Alumni Association are here to create those augmented experiences for you all, okay? So the BAA's mission is to foster and enhance the academic, social, emotional, and professional needs of IMSA's Black students and alumni, and our work falls under 4 pillars: to create student connections, alumni connections, parent connections, and IMSA administration connections. And we've been able to do that over the past 2 years, and we have so much more to do and so much more to come. So I know I've spoken for quite a bit of time. I will just leave you with maybe 3 things that you all can keep in mind going forward. First is community. Get to know people by name and by story. Nobody makes it through IMSA without friends and help. There is no award for the least helped out student, right? Your community might not be your family at home, but it might be your CAC or your teachers or your RCs. It might be your parents' friends. It might be an alumnus like myself. I sincerely hope that the Black Alumni Association can help all of you all who feel like you can reach out to us. Curiosity, and maybe the word is skepticism. You have to question everything, and you have to make your education your own, right? And so even the company that I work for, creating equitable neurotechnologies, was founded by a 22-year-old, someone who was in college and thought, how come EEG technologies don't work for me with my big fro? And she said, I'm going to create a company, I'm going to write a patent for this new technology. And now we have people with doctorates advancing that work. So be curious about the world around you and skeptical about it. You can fix things that are broken. And finally, compassion. Give back as much as you can. Build the future and the IMSA that you want to see. And as my mom says, if you're not a part of the solution, you are a part of the problem. So thank you so much for your time, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much for that memorable speech, and once again, congratulations, Dr. Quazzo. Next up, we have the Distinguished Leadership Award. This award goes to alumni who have made achievements or leadership contributions in their professional fields consistent with IMSA's mission. And the winner of the 2022 Distinguished Leadership Award is Dr. Sona Golder. Dr. Golder is a 1989 IMSA graduate. She is a political science professor at Pennsylvania State University and the University of Bergen. Dr. Golder has published 2 important and well-regarded textbooks, Principles of Comparative Politics and Foundations of Comparative Politics, that show students how to take a scientific approach to answer core questions in comparative politics. She has also developed and taught 10 different courses in political science. She serves as a mentor for numerous graduate students and junior faculty who are women and people of color. Using advanced quantitative methods to explain and critique international political processes, Dr. Golder is an amazing representation of what an IMSA Titan looks like 30+ years later, and how IMSA alumni continue to gravitate towards foundational knowledge of STEM, liberal arts, and social sciences to have an impact on the world through research, teaching, and service. Please welcome Dr. Sona Golder.
Thank you to Dr. Glazer and our hosts, and to the Board of Trustees for this award, and to the people who nominated me. I'm honored to accept this award. I'm excited to be back at IMSA and to get to show this place to my husband. He's been hearing about IMSA for nearly a quarter century now. I'm grateful that my parents let me leave home at 15 to move into an old art room in a formerly abandoned school building with the mere promise that proper dorms would be built, and that funding for future years would be obtained from the state of Illinois. I also have to recognize John Thompson, or JT, my biology teacher at my first high school, who encouraged me to apply to this brand new Math and Science Academy. He took a job here at IMSA the year after I left, and first heard about the job opening from a phone call from me, so he says we're even now, but I still feel like I owe him a lot. Both JT and the amazing IMSA language teacher, Elia Lopez, were crucial influences on me when I was in high school and well beyond, and I now consider both to be family. So as you heard, I'm a political scientist, and it's a great job, but it's not what I planned to do. I went to IMSA to become a biologist. I wanted to study ecology and evolution. So chemistry and physics and even general biology classes were, to my mind, all preparatory for a focus on ecology. Finally, senior year, we had an ecology elective. And it was during that class, fall semester of senior year, that I had an epiphany. There were 8 of us in the class, and we used to go out on field trips, during which we would be outside for hours, and I usually returned to IMSA cold and wet. And so one day, Dr. Kinkle, our teacher, was telling us about a research study she'd conducted that involved her being outside for days on end counting birds. And I saw some of my classmates nodding enthusiastically, like this was the kind of activity they would enjoy. And I realized I was not like them. My senior year roommate and I both found that this course profoundly affected our future career paths. Hers shifted towards studying ecology, which she now does very successfully at the University of Guelph in Canada, and mine shifted away from biology altogether. Now, one of the things I enjoyed about biology was learning how the world works, but what I realized is that we can learn about how the world works on many different levels. And at some point, I realized I wanted to understand how political processes work. It was a shift in focus, a shift in the unit of analysis, but it was still about explaining how the world works. And social science uses the same approach we learned in our biology and physics and chemistry classes at IMSA. When I teach Introduction to Comparative Politics, we talk about the scientific method. That's because political scientists develop theories that are logically consistent, and then we test the implications derived from those theories with both observational and experimental data. To my delight, I discovered that my math background from IMSA was incredibly useful for political science. We can use game theory to develop our arguments and quantitative methods like statistics to test the empirical implications of these arguments. I always encourage my students to take classes in game theory and statistics, and we cover some basics of both in my classes. I'm especially thrilled when students from STEM backgrounds say that they hadn't realized you could use a scientific approach to studying questions about politics, because this is often a prelude to these students switching their major into political science. I would encourage you, when you go off to college, consider taking some social science courses there. You'll find that the math and science skills that you've been developing at IMSA lend themselves extremely well to tackling problems in the social sciences, and that there are tons of interesting and critically important questions to be addressed. You could study the effects of discrimination and representation, the effects of government formation on policy, the determinants of democratic stability, et cetera, et cetera. You'll also find that in some ways the questions are perhaps harder than the ones that might be addressed if you study inanimate objects in the hard sciences. We're dealing with humans who themselves have choices and resources, make decisions in information-poor environments, and behave strategically. In fact, these human subjects might change their behavior based on what they learn from your research. Figuring out political behavior in institutions is a challenge. We need smart people with strong analytical skills like the ones you've been developing to work on important social science problems. Over time, I've realized that one of the most important benefits of attending IMSA was something that wasn't necessarily evident to me while I was still in high school. At IMSA, I had the time and opportunity to interact daily for years with people who had very different backgrounds and life experiences to my own. And these interactions weren't just in one setting like a classroom, because we lived together and we never really could get away from one another. So we were in diverse groups much of the time, racially and ethnically diverse, certainly, but there was also diversity in terms of gender, sexuality, class, and more neurodiversity than I think we'd realized back in the late 1980s. So this experience matters for how I see the world and how I interact with people now. And it also has implications for me as a researcher. According to the political scientist Scott Page, Our biggest advances come when people with different perspectives, with different toolboxes, work together to solve problems. Paige is talking about cognitive diversity, which has to do with the way that people think about, interpret, and interact with the world. Cognitive diversity is distinct from things like racial and ethnic diversity, but empirical evidence suggests that in practice, identity diversity is often positively associated with cognitive diversity. Cultivating environments where a wide variety of researchers feel comfortable working is valuable. Although the scientific method is neutral and unbiased, scientists aren't. Our individual experiences and knowledge affect the theoretical arguments we come up with and the empirical tests we devise. Colleagues with different perspectives, different ideas, different biases, if you will, are able to offer important criticism and feedback. And in this way, collectively, our knowledge advances. I'll sum up by saying that I'm extremely grateful for the strong social and academic foundation that IMSA provided, and I appreciate the people who have made this place work over the years. To the current IMSA students, looking to the future, I hope that you continue to get as much joy and laughter and wisdom from your IMSA family as I've gotten from mine. Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Golder. The last of our awards is the Alumni Trailblazer Award. This award honors alumni who personify IMSA's philosophy statement that there will be alumni who create new intellectual worlds, cure a dreaded human ailment, or in some other way significantly influence life on our planet. The outstanding achievement of these honorees will have earned national or international prominence for a groundbreaking or sweeping initiative that has redefined and improved the way significant numbers of citizens live, learn, or work. And the winner is Dr. Joseph Turek. Dr. Turek is a 1990 IMSA graduate. He is an academic pediatric cardiac surgeon at Duke University. Since 2017, Dr. Turek has served as Chief of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery and Executive Co-Director of Duke's Children's Pediatric and Congenital Heart Center. Prior to Duke, he served in a similar leadership role at the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital from 2012 to 2017. Board certified in cardiac surgery, Dr. Turek has been one of the foremost innovators of the last decade in congenital heart surgery. Most notably, he performed the world's first co-transplant of a heart. In another highly innovative operation, he performed the world's first partial heart transplant for a newborn without functioning aortic or pulmonary valves. Additionally, he led the team at Duke in completing the nation's first pediatric donation after a circulatory death heart transplant. Dr. Turek has published over 150 peer-reviewed manuscripts and book chapters. He graduated from Northwestern University with a degree in biochemistry and received his MD and PhD in pharmacology from the University of Illinois in Chicago with Alpha Omega Alpha distinction. He completed his general surgery education at Duke University, where he also finished a cardiothoracic surgery residency. During this time, he served as a visiting congenital heart surgery fellow at Texas Children's Hospital. Dr. Turek completed a congenital cardiac surgery fellowship at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia in 2011. Please welcome Dr. Joseph Turek.
Thank you. Wow, I'm just so impressed with my fellow awardees, and it's really a privilege for me to be here today. Thank you, IMSA. To me, this award is really the most meaningful award that I've received in my professional career. And the reason for that is because this is where my path started to be a surgeon scientist. It started right here at IMSA 35 years ago. And the foundation that set for me really pushed me forward to where I am today, and I'm so appreciative. And that's really what I wanted to reflect up here in some comments is just the gratitude that I have for IMSA and the people along the way. I'd like to start by introducing my family that's traveled here to be here for this ceremony. My parents, Joe and Kathy Turek, are here. They came up from my wonderful hometown of Petersburg, Illinois, which is down by Springfield for those of you who aren't downstaters. And both my parents are educators. My father spent the majority of his career at the Illinois State Board of Education. My mother as a elementary education teacher. And they were the ones who really had the idea about coming to IMSA. They saw what Dr. Marshall and Dr. Lederman's vision was for this place, and they were astute enough educators to realize that this was the place for me. Despite me not necessarily thinking so early on, it took some time for me to get there. So I'd also like to introduce my brother and sister-in-law, Ken and Kate Muth. They came down from Milwaukee today to be here for the ceremony and to support me like they have ever since I married into their family several years ago. So. Most importantly, I want to thank my wife, Betsy. My wife, Betsy, has really been the person that's allowed all of this to happen with my career. Incredibly supportive. She's the ultimate teammate for what I've done. She knows whether I need encouragement, whether I need to have my ego in check at times, and then also knows, what kind of guides our family as far as a moral compass. And unfortunately she's at home. She had to work, and she also has to take care of the family unit down there with my 3 kids. So, but she's here in spirit, and truly she has achieved this award more so than I have. You can imagine, you hear that heart surgeons are very hard people to work with. Can you imagine being married to one for 26 years? That just kind of tells you the strength of my wife, Betsy. So, I think it's natural that when you get an award like this, that you kind of reflect on your career and what was the path that you took to get to this spot. When I look back and I kind of did this reflection over the last several days, I realized I made a lot of missteps in my path, and a lot more missteps than I did things that I did right. But I did do a few things right, and I think by and large they were by luck and happenstance, but nonetheless they worked out for me. And I think that the things I'd like to pass along to the students are some of these things that I did right, so that you can be more intentional about doing these things and not just be lucky like I was that these kind of things worked out. The first thing I want to mention is seizing opportunities. Obviously, coming to IMSA is seizing an opportunity. But for me, with being a surgeon scientist, the first opportunity that I seized was this idea of mentorship that IMSA had from the early days. At the time, we used days called exploration days, where we would go and work with a mentor. I think you call it SIR now. And I remember I was with my partner in crime, Steve Kukulka. We used to go to Loyola School of Medicine, and I got my first taste of what medical research was all about at that point. And the crazy thing about opportunities is they beget further opportunities. And so I had that mentorship opportunity at Loyola, and that led to a summer research program in pharmacology at Southern Illinois School of Medicine, which is close to my hometown. And then that led to my mentor there getting a position at Abbott Laboratories. And so then when I was at Northwestern, I spent every summer at Abbott Laboratories doing more scientific research. And what we found, I didn't have the background at that point to really understand all of the science, but what we did find is that I had pretty good hands, and I was the guy they asked to do all the different animal surgeries, no matter how fine they were. And that really set me on this path that I love this research, but I think I need to be operating too. And that really, it really shaped me, all those experiences, and they all one led to the other. I think the second thing I want to say is when you find your passion, just really go for it and go all in. And that's what I did. So I had all this experience with research, and so I applied to MD PhD programs out of college, and I was lucky enough to go to the University of Illinois Chicago and do their MD PhD program. And in that program, I realized, wow, I've bit off a lot here. It turned out to be 8 years, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of PhD research. And then after that, I went and did a surgery residency at Duke. That was 5 years. And then I stayed at Duke, and I did 3 years of cardiothoracic fellowship. And then I went to Philadelphia, and I did a year of pediatric heart fellowship. So I trained for 17 years after I finished college, and I got my first job at age 39 at the University of Iowa. And the thing is, I wouldn't change it at all because I found my passion. I was there. I was in the moment and throughout the entire time. So if you find your passion, it doesn't matter how long the journey is. If that's really what you like, it'll sustain you. The third thing I think is gratitude, which is really, like what I wanted to express mainly here today. It takes a lot of people. No great thing ever occurred in a vacuum. And it always takes people from all walks of your life in order to get you there. It's those mentors that I had at Loyola and at Abbott Laboratories. It's your family who's your support system throughout all of this, and your friends who are your support system. So. And it's your school. It's a place, an amazing place like this, who set you up for those kind of opportunities. And then the fourth thing, which is probably the most important of all, is just be a good person along the way. And, be good to people. I have to, tell a story. I came up here last night, and I wasn't expecting this, but some of my colleagues threw a party for me last night. And, it was one of those things where it was really touching to have all these folks, many of which I hadn't seen in decades, to come back and to celebrate me. And, I think of all the things, you'll leave here with all these relationships that you have at IMSA. That'll be the biggest gift you leave with, are those relationships. So. Anyway, thank you so much. This is an incredible award. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate the time to be up here. Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Turek, and all of our 2022 Alumni Award recipients. It's an honor to hear about your unique experiences and the motivation behind all the work that you've done till this day. In honor of our alumni and all who made today's celebration possible, please enjoy a special performance by IMSA's Chamber Strings.
Thank you so much for that energetic performance. Please join us one more time in a final recognition to our outstanding alumni with a final round of applause. Please stand.
Thanks, everybody, and have a great Friday.